there I was minding my own business as you do, and I get a message from Lisa Barry. Um, and I just saw the message, and my gut reaction was like, you
Yeah.
know, because I clicked the link and saw the post, and there I could see my own face and my name attached to a post that was literally basically slagging me off and berating me and calling me out, and why would I behave like that, and who's teaching these people this kind of shit, etc., etc. But the worst thing for me was the amount of connections that were also joining in, going, yeah, yeah, oh dear Emma, etc., etc. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are actually
Believing
you
it.
believe it's me, whereas you could quite clearly see that definitely wasn't me, because one, the irony of me selling bitcoins isn't lost on myself or you, in the fact that I was scammed however many years ago, but so that wasn't lost on me. And it's like, for me, it just shows the level of importance of showing up as a real human being
Mm.
online, as a caring person, as a person who is honest, as a person who you know wants to have fun but is also passionate about what they're doing to help other people. And because I show up consistently, and I am visible, and I use my mission-led content to
Yes,
create
you
my messages, to
do.
create my messages, you knew straight away, this is a crock of shit. This needs sorting out. I need to help Emma out. But for me, that kind of, if people are seeing this, about what are they going to think, it goes back to that whole, being rejected, like the
Yeah.
school days, like everybody's talking about me behind my back,
Mm.
that
And it
kind of,
wasn't fair. It wasn't right.
no,
Yeah, it's one
no,
thing if somebody said, "Oh, I don't like who's teaching this mission-led content stuff? It's rubbish." Right? Who's teaching that? Oh, that's my doorbell. I'll just close the door. We'll pretend that hasn't happened. We're not recording a podcast. Yeah, and the dog's going to come in now and tell me that the doorbell's going, even though my husband's here. But it's fine. We'll just leave it in. This is life. Um,
this is,
but
yeah,
it's the fact that it's like it's lies, because essentially that's
yeah.
like somebody spreading lies about you.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
total dishonesty of it all.
mm,
And, apart from you, no one else seeing through that. And it's like, well, if this post doesn't get taken down, how many more people are going to see my name out there and thinking, oh shit,
but
I
if
don't want
you
anything to
did
do with
request
her.
to then be somebody's friend,
Yes,
you
exactly.
were requesting to be somebody's friend, and then they think, oh well, I've seen that face before, and they like remember, no, Sandy, I'm not talking to you here. Then that lie can have ramifications and ripple
Yeah.
effects that go far beyond just this simple
Post.
one post, because who there could have been other ones out there as well,
Yeah.
that said the same thing. What one thing that struck me at the time about this, because I think probably nearly every time I go on social media, I think that I think it's very likely I'm going to see a similar post. Somebody
Mm.
calling out somebody else. And I've been so tempted myself to do this, because we see really shitty that Emma, that wasn't Emma, um, was doing some shitty stuff. I mean, the fact that they have to steal an identity, it's more than just marketing
Yeah.
in a way that is unethical. They were clearly scamming, because why else would you need to put somebody else's face on it and have somebody else's name? That's clearly super, super dodgy. But whether it's because of scams or whether it's because of that unethical marketing, whether it's calling out somebody big like Gary Vee, or calling out a behavior of something that you see in general marketing online, it's always got tons of engagement. When you call out somebody else's behavior, when you say, I hate it when people do this, you will guarantee, if you want to get a load of engagement on your post, go and do that. Not, I don't recommend it, but if that's what you're genuinely looking for, just engagement, then it will do it, because everyone likes to jump on that bandwagon of putting
Yeah.
other people down.
Yeah.
And what struck me is the amount of times I see this and they do not delete the face
Yeah. Or the
or the
name.
name.
Yeah.
And what occurred to me with this, I've never liked that. I've always found that uncomfortable. But it actually has never crossed my mind that that actually wouldn't. I never liked it because I thought it was didn't feel right. But
Mm.
actually, what if it's not even that person?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
next time anyone sees that online and you see that like I commented on one a couple of days ago where I said, I agree this is dodgy as shit. This isn't good marketing. But remember that that might not be that person's face and name. So you could be shaming someone without realizing it. And I would love it if as a community of mission-led content followers, people who just want to have a better space online to connect with people and to market, that actually we all did that. I mean, or even message the person directly, because obviously if you even anything you put on it can boost the algorithm on it, or
Yeah.
maybe putting something on it is the right thing to do because you bring awareness to other people that it might not be that person. What would you like to see happen, Emma? Is there anything that you think?
I guess it's that, having had experienced it myself, it's that, do you genuinely know that's that person?
Mm.
How can you tell that's genuine that person? Why you can call people out without using names
You can
and
call out
profile.
behavior, can't you?
Yeah, so you can call out what, say, I don't appreciate making, connections with somebody and then being spammed with 50 reasons why I should invest in Bitcoins.
Call
Nobody
it out. It's
wants that.
bullshit. Call it out. Yeah.
That you can call that out. You don't need to call the person out. I don't feel there's any need to do that
No.
at any stage because, like you say, one, you don't know if it's genuinely that person or if it is a scam. But two, I always think unless you want to see this kind of shit on the side of a house or written on a bus, don't put it out there in the online space because you never know when it's going to come back to you and what damage it can do as the person calling somebody else out, especially if you don't know all the facts.
Yeah, because imagine if that then happens, if somebody's done this and then it happens to them, it's very it feels it's so clickbaity. That's what I see it as. I see it as a very clickbait. You might be genuinely annoyed about it at the time and genuinely want to show some frustration, which social media is a group people like doing it there. But it just feels like, what is the purpose? I love that phrase of, what if you wouldn't put it on the billboard or a side of a house, then don't put it into the ether. And I think that's such a good thing to go by. What also that isolated incident on its own caused a very visceral reaction for you, like
Yeah,
the way you said, like physically, you said, I'm physically shaking, I feel,
yeah,
or and you described like that sound, that like
yeah,
this feeling in your gut, like right in the bottom of your gut. And like, because you talk about subconscious, it's subconscious stuff that goes on within us. So how we operate is often based on our previous experiences, and those thought patterns that have been programmed into us. What was it, do you think, that came up for you that made that specific event so challenging from a mental health point of view?
that linked direct, and I knew exactly what it was. It was direct linked to when I was scammed 4 years ago. So in January 2020, I was scammed out of £13,000
That is it.
in a telephone scam. And again, it was just the whole deception, the lies, and the continued bullshit that I was spun um, to such a degree where, again, the online space was used. There were websites that were copied and cloned. So
So can you
any
can you talk us through that? What happened? What was what?
so I'd received a call and I was at my parents' house at the time. My dad was still alive and mum was still alive, and I do a lot of extra things for mum and dad because dad was quite elderly and mum was disabled. So I'd go around and help out. And that particular time I was cleaning, as you do. So I was cleaning and dusting and I'd missed a phone call because I'd been gabbing to a friend for about an hour. And
As you do.
at that point I'd still got answer phone. I've taken it off my phone now, but I had an answer phone service and I missed a call. and it said that I'd missed a payment to HMRC, blah, 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 and I needed to call back immediately. Now, this made sense because I'd taken on an accountant way back when who hadn't completed the forms in time. So it feasibly, what they were telling me rang true in my head.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem suspicious to me that there would be an answer phone message to call back. So I called back, and basically what unfolded was then an 8-hour scam keeping me on the telephone. I'm going to get a bit upset now. Basically, talking me through a series of things that I'd apparently done.
Wow.
They'd also got they were using NLP for its lowest good, basically. They were using all the manipulative language to find out
neuro-linguistic programming, isn't it? And it's something that there's lots of MLC people that are trained in it. You're trained in it, aren't you?
No, I'm not trained in NLP.
But we know lots of
I know all about it.
And NLP itself is about how we speak to ourselves and how we speak to others, isn't it? It's the power of language, really.
Yeah, so
but it's definitely used by scam artists.
Yeah, it was using all the language that would trigger response from me, like about well, what time are your children going to be home from school? How many boys have you got? And just picking up on things that I was answering, and then being friendly, but then using it against me to bring out more information. And I remember them telling me, you owe this much. Okay, can I transfer it? Yes, you can transfer it. Trying to transfer it. It was just the most horrific 8 hours I've ever endured, and it was taking you through a series of stages where they'd say, go and look at this website, you can see all the details there. And of course they'd cloned a website so you could see exactly what they wanted you to see. And
so
money isn't my strongest point anyway. No. I'm not the world, I save money and blah blah blah, but I'm not like the world's best bookkeeper or the world's best accountant. And it's never been my strong suit. So when somebody says that it's a mistake made by the accountant that you had in such, but you're responsible for that, it all rang true. So it was like a series of stages that I went through, making these payments. But then it wasn't just me that was involved. I asked my mum to help me out, and she's like, why? I said, I can't tell you. They'd basically told me that they could see if I was calling somebody else, and I wasn't allowed to tell them. It all had to take place privately because of, I don't know, they made up some bullshit about, I can't even remember what the word they called it, about it being private and confidential, and if a third party found out about it, it wouldn't be able to go through because it was with a judge in the High Court and all this
shit.
Yeah, so it was
fear. I mean, you must have been like, at the time, that those 8 hours.
Well, it was on a Friday, and they basically told me if I didn't sort myself out before the end of the day, that the local police would come and take me to spend the weekend in the cells. So I've got two young boys at the time.
Yeah.
And all I could think was, oh my God, what's that going to do to them mentally? Yeah. How am I going? So I was literally would do anything to prevent them having to think their mum's gone to prison for the weekend and not know when I'm coming back.
At what point in this process then did you realise that this was
I didn't.
So it's not point in the process, but at what point, like after the money had transferred and after all of that, how long did it take before you realised?
So literally I got off the phone and my partner said to me, what on earth have you been doing? Why have you been on the phone all that time? And I said, I've made this mistake and I did this and this. And he just went, no, that's a scam. And I just remember nearly falling to the floor.
Oh, you worked so hard for your. I'm getting teary now just thinking of, we work so hard for our money, to be able to provide for our family, to be able to like you'd been running a glass business at that time. That's where what
Yeah,
your business was. And then to have somebody, what's so, it's like the same person who took your identity. They are
yeah.
so using the online space. I don't know, if anyone's listening, just both me and Emma have just got I've both got starry eyes at the moment, and it's not it's just such a horrific thing to think that somebody goes to, not, there are many people out there that go to that much effort
To
to
bring you
cause, to
down.
bring you down in such a significant way. So the person who's stolen your identity on Facebook were probably, I mean, the fact that they, like I said before, they're not, this isn't like a legit business that there are people who trade bitcoins and things. I don't understand any of it, but I know there are people who are doing that, and that has legitimacy in some cases, I think. But from the perspective of like that, to steal someone's identity, they're obviously not doing it. So these people are going out of their way
Yeah,
very, very intentionally and very manipulatively to completely destroy. Like, that's, they must, during those conversations while they're asking you about your children, they're asking you about you, they are learning all this stuff about you. At what point would empathy ever kick in? Like, understanding, like they're learning about you as a person, as a human being,
yeah,
to be able
yeah.
to turn that against you.
Yeah, that's it. And they're just, their only mission in life is to scam people out of as much money as possible. It would have kept going. They said that Monday morning they were going to contact me again because there was another amount that was outstanding and blah 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 blah. And they even said to me, Monday, you need to sign up for this place in Wolverhampton and blah blah blah. That was even cloned, and there was a to go so I could learn about better bookkeeping and blah blah blah. So the same thing didn't happen again. So it was a complete planned
Mm.
process that they sort of dragged people through.
And they know what they're doing, and so
Oh
this
yeah,
is like
absolutely.
they know what they're doing. They're trained with the language, they're trained with the technology,
Yeah,
they're trained how to, if they'd have caught you on a different day, it may have been a different circumstance. So
yeah,
they may phone 10 people and get one person
yeah,
that goes through the system because of the place that person is in at the time. The, like you said, things like the situation where you had an accountant who didn't, you knew had made mistakes, or you knew there were things that weren't done right. I mean, that is pure coincidence.
yeah.
If they had phoned up an accountant who, or somebody who absolutely had all of that, knew that they'd got that stuff sorted and had it, and they'd question it from the beginning. But because it rang true from that very first
That's
sentence,
it. Yeah,
and
they
it
hit
took you on
potluck.
a path.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
despite the fact that this happens to so many people, how, I know you've spoken about this, I think it was later on in 2020, much later on, that because I, like you say, we met in 2020, joined the MLC. I'm helping you to get the messaging around you helping crafters to sell their crafts online. And then it was at some point during the year, much later, that you started to talk about this that had happened.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it took you a long time to talk about it. Um,
yeah. Because of the shame,
well, that.
it was complete and utter shame and guilt. Because not only because I was involved, but I'd involved my mum.
Mm,
And then my dad was cross with my mum and was cross with me. So it was like
yeah.
it was like double whammy.
Yeah,
So
so you're
it's just
getting the
like a
blame
ripple
then, and you're
effect.
blaming
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah, yeah,
even though this is an absolute orchestrated,
yeah,
manipulative system that you got caught into.
yeah, yeah.
The shame
I had
still
to phone the
tied you.
police, and the police were involved, and they came, and I remember saying to the lady, she called me back, the police woman. She said, "I'm afraid it is a scam. You have been scammed." And I just remember sitting there rocking backwards and forwards because I just could not believe what had happened, all that I'd been through, and everything else. And it just, poof.
You kept thinking like you're doing this, and at the end of it, you'll be able to, a lot of money spent, but it's got to be done.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we've got
yeah,
taxes,
yeah,
it's got to be done.
yeah,
At
yeah.
least at the end of this, you've
And
been able to relax.
And my honesty meant that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Let's get it sorted
Mm.
because one of my highest
You didn't
values
want to
is
be.
honesty. So I didn't
Yeah.
want to be dishonest and not pay what I believed somebody told me I owed.
What would you now you have the knowledge that you have. If you were to get a similar phone call or so, like what advice would you give to people to avoid something like that happening? I mean, you would have seen the advice, and it still doesn't mean that just because you hear advice that you're not
Yeah. Well,
um
the classic is the accountant telling you, why didn't you phone us and ask us first? It's like, because I believed it's true. And that's the whole point.
mm,
You know, if it's really difficult when you're in that situation to even say to somebody now, you know, check the telephone number, phone your accountant first, check with a family member. Because if they've got you on the phone and they've got the language right,
mm,
you're in and you're hooked in.
yeah. And they're literally, that is what they're trained to do. They're trained to use that. So
Yeah.
it's I'm curious to know, so in that time over the
Mm.
course of 2020, before you were talking about this, before you spoke about it and shared that this had happened
Yeah.
to you, and you talked about the shame, how did that impact on you and your business and how you felt about marketing and being online?
There was just a huge drive to recoup what I'd
Ah, yeah, what you'd
uh,
spent, yeah,
unknowingly.
given away,
Yeah.
not given away, being scammed out of,
Yeah.
yeah, more appropriately.
Yeah, so that was a big drive for me to recoup that, because it
Yeah,
wasn't just my money, it was an investment that my mum had given to me to help me,
yeah. Did
you
they ever
know.
get the money back? Did you ever get
So
any?
yeah, I did. I literally that night I spent hours writing out exactly the conversations I'd had, exactly the conversations I'd had with the bank, exactly the literally I've got reams and reams. I could write a book on it. I've still got it. I just, because I've got such a short working memory, I literally wrote it all out as
Mm.
soon as it had happened. I didn't go to bed until I'd literally got everything that I could possibly think of. And the good thing was, the ombudsman lady, I know ombudsman lady sounds bizarre, she said to me it was the level of detail that I'd written down helped
Wow.
me recoup that money, because as the people were talking to me, I was literally writing down what he was saying, because like I say, my short-term working memory is very small. So I literally write down the notes as I was being
As you were
spoken.
on the conversation, and then you were
Yeah.
able to use that
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
money. Did they ever, do you know if they ever caught them or if it was like an
No,
insurance
sadly
thing,
not.
you know?
Sadly not. I was told it was like a big office of just so many people doing exactly the same thing from the morning till the night time,
They're like
somewhere in a call
employees
centre.
in an
Yeah,
office.
a
So they
call
like,
centre.
you know, they
Yeah.
go out in the morning, they get on the train or the tube or they drive, whatever, and they're like, oh, I'm just on my way to work, like, do, do,
Yeah.
do, 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 just on my way to scam people, do, 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 do. Show up
Yeah.
and,
So it's
hi,
like a
hi, Dave, how are you? Do you have a nice night? All the sort of office cooler conversations, and in between, they're
yeah. So yeah, that's it.
scamming
That's
people.
that's their
Business.
mission.
Yeah, their
Sadly,
mission. Yeah.
that's their mission.
I'm so sorry that that happened to you, Emma, and I'm so grateful as well for you talking about it, because this thing of shame and people feeling shame around so many things, as you know,
Yeah.
working with people's subconscious, it really
Yeah.
does impact on how
Massively.
so many different areas of their life. With your knowledge about shame and understanding that, how else does that show up in people's lives? I'm curious, thinking of, you know, you've got so much experience of that now working with your clients.
So, so from one of the things I did want to say was, this is also one of the reasons I've gone into doing what I'm doing. So
Right.
not only just working with crafters and seeing how much their um, sort of beliefs and barriers were created from things that happened to them, but also from that point of view of what happened to me, I wanted to be able to use language for the positive. I
Mm,
wanted it to be a positive experience where language was used to create positive change rather than impact people in a negative way. So that's one of the other reasons that I thought, I really want to do this. But shame, it's massive, because if you feel shame around showing up because you're ashamed of that you're going to be boasting or bragging if you put a picture of yourself, I've had people say to me, why are you always putting pictures of yourself out there? What's that about? It just looks like a general post when you attach it to something to business. It's like I'm putting it out there so people can see me, because they need to trust me if they're going to come and work with me. So for me, it's like the more they can see my face or hear my voice, the better. But there'll be some people who feel complete shame around that
Yeah.
because of the beliefs that have been created. So they're fearful as well about what's going to come back to them if they put themselves out there more, or if they are truly visible to the fullest extent possible.
Yeah.
They're fearful and they feel shame. It's like, or they start to doubt themselves and they start to question their worthiness. And again, that all has such an impact on how they show up and how mission led they are or are not. So,
And how they feel in like internally. So, we often, that connection between how we feel about what we're selling and how we feel about our business impacts on how easy it is to sell. Because if we feel, I mean, that those people certainly didn't feel any shame. So if they don't feel any shame, then why should we?
yeah. And that's
From that point of view.
That's exactly what I said to one of my clients. I actually told her the story of what had happened to me. And I said, there are people out there showing up and not giving a shit. I said, we need to be doing the same. We need to be showing up without that feeling of being ashamed or feeling guilty about what we're doing, because we're doing good in the world.
We're doing something positive.
Yeah, we're putting the positive things out there, and we need to be showing up with as much boldness as the people that aren't doing the good in the world, and not giving so much of a shit as to what everybody else thinks. But yeah, it does, they've not had the same conditioning or built the same beliefs up, and they've not got the same blocks around being visible and things like that. So it's easy for people to say, just show the fuck up, get over yourself. And it's really easy. And you can do that to a certain degree, I believe. You can get to a level.
Like the fake it till you make it.
Yeah. But then you crash and burn.
Smile on. Yes.
Because you're not being true to yourself, and you don't believe it yourself. So you're being something completely different to what you believe. That causes the burnout. And then you're back to wondering, well, why is this happening to me? Why do I feel like this? Why can't I show up fully for myself? Why can't I be compassionate to myself? And that's when the subconscious kind of work really, really shines, because you can go back in and you can help people with that, deep belief that generally you're not good enough, you're not worthy of having more.
Sorry, can you hear me okay? I just put my mute on because I didn't want some family noise. And you were saying such absolutely spot on, because that's what, when I first started talking to people about being courageously visible, was the terminology I used a lot back then. One of the things that I've noticed over the years, and I did a podcast episode with Esther Nagel, I think it was the first one I did actually a couple of months ago now, and in that we were talking about the dangers of courageous visibility. And that there's this, like everything, two things can be true at the same time. There is a real power in showing up, in owning who you are, what your message is, as a business owner, saying this, like from a purely like practical point of view, people can't buy your products or services if they don't know you exist. So actually, from a purely practical point of view, you have to tell people, Tesco's don't worry if they put an advert out, don't worry what people are are people going to think that Tesco's is a bit too braggy, or a bit too, a bit too.
Or Tesco's don't think how many adverts have I put out today.
Yeah.
How many call to actions posts have I created today? They're not worried about that. It's just like,
it's bang, 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 bang. They're putting it out there because that's how people raise awareness. People then will know where to go. People will then go to Tesco's when they need their shit. I mean, Tesco's is probably not the best example. But
no, but we can all relate to that.
It's something that we're not going to judge Tesco's for advertising. So why would we judge small business owners for talking about their business? But there's this flip side of that courageous visibility, which is that you will come across often, and this is what we both found. So you helping your crafters, me helping small business owners, we recognize that there is this stuff that you can, there's so much more than just saying show up, like you said. There's all this stuff that underlines. And so the danger of courageous visibility is twofold. One, that you are going to have to do some inner work. The likelihood is that you're going to have to do some inner work, unless you really are one of these people who just doesn't give a shit from the get-go, which crack on. But most people that I come into contact with, putting themselves out there to that extent for their business requires them to address these blocks, these self-sabotages, the things that stop them from doing it. But there's another side, and that of course is the more visible you are, the more of a potential, why did they choose your face and your name? You were visible to them. So we've got that other side of just understanding that two things can be true at the same time, that there are dangers to everything, and we need to go into things with our eyes open, and then so that it's not all about flowers and
unicorns and rainbows.
Unicorns and rainbows, and I think I used to use the term. It's not all about unicorn poo. It's there's sometimes shit just stinks. And the online world is both a blessing and a curse. I wouldn't know you without the online space. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without the online space, which is amazing, because I am frankly unemployable in any other situation. So I'm really glad this space exists, but it does have its challenges that we have to navigate, and we have to find a way through. And you've had, through having that scamming issue, and then having that your identity stolen, it brought up that same emotion of some of those challenges that we have to face, some of the shame that we have to deal with for different reasons.
And it does take you back to that, like you say, because I was so visible and because I do so much online, they cloned my account. If I just had like 2 followers and didn't speak to anybody, quite possibly wouldn't have been ever any interest to them whatsoever.
So this is a danger. But what do? Do you hide and go, well, I'm not going to run a business? But
that can trigger that, that fear of being successful.
Yeah,
that can be triggered by that, because you think, gosh, I'm reaching a level of success where people are cloning me, stealing my identity and talking shit about me. And that can trigger that it's not safe to be successful. So I could have retreated, but obviously I've done a lot of work on myself whilst training to do what I am doing now. So fortunately I could recognise that.
So you
and it didn't make me retreat.
That feeling, so like that initial emotion that you talked about feeling at the beginning. Let me just close the door. So the initial emotion that you talked about feeling at the beginning, when I first messaged you. Sorry, that's what every time I message you now, you're gonna be like, oh my god, what's she messaging me? So you had that initial feeling, and then because you'd done this previous work, you have to go, okay, I'm getting that feeling is related to this previous experience. And it doesn't have to stop you from physically running your business, advertising your business, and connecting with people, because that's one of the reasons you run your business, isn't it? It's not just to make a transaction or financial transaction. You run it because you value the work that you do and the connection that you have with people.
And the impact, it's not, I don't mean the impact of me just having a conversation with somebody, but having experienced the impact myself personally, I know how much it can have an impact on other people. And for me, it is all about connection. That's what we all need, love and connection. So when somebody is connecting on my behalf that isn't me, that pisses me off as well. So there's that flip side. I got upset, but I was also fucking
angry.
Fucking livid. How very dare you? So there was those sides, but because I can regulate that now, I recognize it and I can do something about it. It didn't stop me from going out and carrying on you know, telling people what I do, connecting with people, networking with people, putting valuable content out there. It didn't stop me, but there was a time when it would have, just because of the baggage and shit I was carrying around.
Yeah.
But because I've done all of that work, not because there's always more to do, but you know, I'd done so much around that, it didn't affect my business. It didn't have the impact that perhaps they wanted to create.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. I mean, they want is um their their pennies. That's what they're
Yeah,
after, really. And
yeah,
you are irrelevant. You're a tool. You're a face. You're a name. You're not a human. They're not seeing you as a human to do that to you. Just like the same with despite
yeah.
asking you questions about your children and your personal life, they're
It's
still
just an
not seeing that
opportunity. Yeah,
humanity
yeah.
behind it, and they're not seeing that empathy. From a perspective of you now, you've owned your, how long have you been in business in total? Because you've been doing you were doing the glass making for quite some time before that.
Oh my God, since 1993.
1993. Okay, so you
Yeah,
are seasoned business owner. You know, you've been around the block a couple of times. This isn't
yeah,
your first rodeo. You
no,
know the trials, tribulations, and joy. You're still in it, so there's got to be the joy is still there. You've not gone and filled out an application form and got a job. You're still doing it.
yeah.
So there's going to have been a massive shift and change in Emma and the businesses that you've done and the way
Yeah.
that you've shown up. How how would you, 'cause as business owners, we relate, business owners who are online, our identity is so tied into our
Mm.
messaging, our business, like who Emma is as a whole person is more than just, as amazing as your business is and amazing as your other businesses have been, and that progression and that evolution. Emma is a whole person that is beyond that, is so much more than that. What is it? What does it feel like to have that your identity wrapped up in your messages? Is there danger in that? And do you feel that's something that advice you would give to people living in that, being in the spotlight, so to speak, for so long?
Guess after so long, you do get kind of used to the shit showing up, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 it does.
Part of the course. Like when I, you know, graduated from uni and then went straight into running the business. So sorry, no, it was 93 I started uni, 96 I finished uni, and then I went into business with now X. It was not anything to do online. There was like it was
Mm.
just about dial-up internet coming in. So there was none of this online space. It was literally, genuinely, you went to trade shows, you went to craft fairs, you went to business
And
networking.
that was
That's how
glass.
you did
That
it.
was when
Yeah.
you started your glass, wasn't it? Was
Yeah, yeah. So that was glass.
Mm.
You did not go online and do stuff. You know, we were just making kind of websites back then, just about, and
Kind of website. Not real
creating.
websites, kind of websites.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like, what even was a real website back? I think we had to ask Jeeves back in those days.
Oh my God, poor Jeeves. Where is he
I
now?
don't even think there was
Where is
Google back then.
Jeeves?
Yeah. So yeah, an online catalogs didn't exist, so they were all printed catalogs. So it was very much,
Mm.
you did everything face to face. There was none of this hiding behind a screen and being a keyboard warrior or any of that shit. You know, you didn't. You, I guess there was a case of you could be a little bit more separate.
Yeah.
You know, you could show up as the business
So that's
person,
what,
then you went
so
home.
you've seen that evolution then, and you fully
Yeah,
leaned into it because you were literally teaching crafters like how to use the online space.
yeah,
You
yeah.
fully leaned into the opportunities that the online space gave your business.
So when I came back to the UK in 2013, I just got divorced, and Jake and Alec were then 7 and 5, and basically they needed their mum. I could not be out there doing craft fairs every weekend. You know, we'd just moved countries to then leave them at the weekend with my parents and say, right, oh lads, I'm off.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it because then I worked in an office so that I could get a mortgage. I did 4 years in an office to get a mortgage. So, you know, your own books. That takes 7 years and forever. So I was working part-time in an office,
Yeah.
making glass. Like when they came home, they'd help me make glass, sell
Oh,
glass. So it was all about like, okay, how can I sell this online without having a fancy pants website that's going to cost me 2.5 grand?
yeah.
And I can do this all from the comfort of my kitchen table.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to sell at my parents' house online via Facebook events.
Wow. And
So
it was literally Facebook events, wasn't it, that you were
yeah, that
specifically
was
doing?
only using Facebook events to sell. Facebook and Facebook events, and that was my primary focus. And that's how I created all of my sales.
Mm,
And I consistently do between £500 and £700 at each sale, which was brilliant because it meant you could do that without leaving the house.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
And
I mean
my
that is
boys would
totally
help me.
that's one of my whys, 100%, is because I
Yeah.
just don't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
I
But
just,
also they could help me,
yes, you're
I did go out.
engaging, yeah.
Yeah, I did go out and do a few craft fairs and I'd take them with me. And we'd just come back and Jake would go, oh, how much have we made today then, Mum? And I'd be like, not much, mate. And he's like, oh, we might as well do them Facebook ones. I mean, they even
Mm,
saw it themselves that
yeah.
there was more value in doing that. So yeah, it has evolved completely. Um, but it allowed me to show people more of who I am
Mm,
because it's online, because it's easier to do it.
yeah.
I did run a networking group locally, and I'd take my boys along to that, and they enjoyed it, and it gave them the confidence to stand up and speak in public, so that really
Oh,
helped them.
wow.
But from a running a business perspective, I think online is so much easier than most people give it credit for.
Yeah, I think you make it so there's like we said, two things can be true at the same time. There is a risk. There are mental health risks to being online, and that thing that, like you said, you could keep it separate before, where it
Yeah,
suddenly becomes enveloped in your identity. Your identity becomes not just Emma, but Emma, the business owner. This is who you are. This is your entirety. To some
yeah.
people, it's just this identity as your online persona, which is why it's so damaging when that is
But
taken away.
you can share as little or as much as you want.
Yes.
We always have a choice.
Yeah, I
And I
talk
think,
about that honesty doesn't mean that you don't have to have boundaries. You can be honest, but you put your boundaries. And a tip, if anyone is concerned about that, something I talk about with my clients a lot when this conversation comes up is literally draw a line in the sand. And by that, I mean, get your journal out, get a big piece of paper, draw a line and be like, this is what I'm going to share. This is what I'm happy to talk about. This is what I'm not.
yeah,
For some people, that's part of their personal life. I think one of the first times I did this was during COVID, and I decided I was not going to talk about masks. I was not going to, because these were like topics
yeah,
that were
yeah,
so
yeah,
triggering at the time.
yeah,
And I just did not want to see them. I didn't want to engage in them. So by actually saying I'm not going to engage, the less you engage with something, the less you see it. The more you engage with things you want to see, then you're going to see more of that. So literally putting that very intentional line and saying this is what I'm happy to talk about and show up with, and this is what I'm not, allows you to not second guess everything all the time. And you get that. I've redrawn that back. I'm fine with talking about masks now, to be honest. I couldn't give a shit. I wouldn't talk about it because nobody cares, but as in, like, I don't have, it's not on my list anymore because life has moved on. You can redraw that boundary line as many times as you need to, depending on where you are and what's happening in your life. So you're absolutely right. Being honest and showing up with honesty does not mean that you don't have boundaries. Emma, one last thing before we go. I
yeah,
really am grateful for you sharing these things because these are real life events that can happen to
yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
And yet
yeah,
people have so much shame around them. They don't want to talk about them. They don't want to open up about it, and that then creates more shame. And so I
yeah.
think it's really important and really valuable that you're here and that you're able to talk about these things.
Thank you.
Something that I'd love for people to go away and do is, number one, stop, if you're already doing it, sharing content where you're calling people out with their names and their faces and their clear identity, because you don't know if it's them. And if you see it, please just contact the person, like drop them
Yeah,
a line and say, do you know that this is that person? You know, you don't have to be antagonizing. Just share this experience. I listened to this podcast where somebody had their identity stolen, and they were using that identity. This might not be that person. Like, have that conversation, spread awareness, and also this sense of deciding where, if you like Emma's one of your core values is honesty, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why it was so triggering. But what are your values and how you want to show up in the world and how you want to show up in that online space, and coming back to that and grounding yourself in that, which is what you did after these things have happened to you. You've knuckled down, like, what's important to me. After the scam, it was making back that money, giving back to the people that these people had taken from. It was like continuing to show up. And then this other thing of recognizing where our blocks might be, where our subconscious blocks might be, and what is it that might, if something's stopping you, if you feel uncomfortable about something, I always say to my clients, without judgment, why? What might be going on there? And then, of course, I don't know how to answer that. I pass on to people like Emma who can actually do that. So if you were to give, if you're thinking those business owners out there who may be feeling uncomfortable, worried about being scammed, or worried about being seen as something they're not, what advice would you like to give to finish with to those business owners?
For me, it's all about stopping and just taking a step back.
Okay.
And it's quite difficult to do that in the heat of the moment. But for me, I'm a natural responder, so I respond quite quickly to things. But the lesson for me is to stop, take a step back, and just listen to what you're being told intuitively. And because I didn't stop and listen, it was easier for them, because like you say, there's so much going on and blah blah blah, and they'd hit the nail on the head with a few pointers. If you can just take that breath and take a step back, whether that's before you post something on the internet, you know, that
send any money to anyone, before
whatever
before you
it
get
is.
angry at somebody for saying something or sending you a message, like somebody said, oh, who is this horrible Emma Kirkham who's sending me this terrible message? Like, take a step back. That might not be Emma Kirkham.
But that would genuinely be my advice for most things, is just take that step back and just ask yourself, is this real?
Thank you so much for sharing. And Emma, where can people find you, and what is it that you would like people to know about right now? If they come and see this later at a later date, they all the links will still be there that they can find you and what you're doing in that moment in time. But for present Emma, as we're recording this in April 2024, what do you want people to go to and find out and buy from you right now?
Oh, okay. So they can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the two main platforms where you can
make sure it's the right
me. Yeah. Make sure it's
You'll
the right
know.
So yeah, they can find me on there. But I'd love more people to be able to experience the beauty of heart healing, and when you really do drop into finding out what relationship has actually caused the beliefs, blocks and barriers that you're currently carrying around with you, that are stopping you showing the fuck up to the fullest in life or business, whatever area it is. When they can experience that, find the real experience with the person that caused that, it makes a whole world of difference.
And they can find, you've got working one-to-one?
Yeah, so I do one-to-one work, I do group work, and I'm literally just about to launch a collective heart healing experience.
That's what I've seen somewhere that I was heading people. So make sure you say, so a collective heart healing experience. Okay.
Yes,
so
I'm just about to launch that.
Okay,
yeah.
So make sure you, as I said, you may be listening to that when that is over, and that's the launch of that is over. But for those listening, an imperative time at this time, it's good to know exactly what you take, because I always say you've got to tell people exactly what you're selling. That's what we've got to do. So it's great.
And it's a magical opportunity to enjoy it at the lowest investment that it will ever be.
Okay, so I want all those details so I can put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and for being so vulnerable, and for being in my world for the last 4 years,
Thank
because
you.
your mission-led content has definitely, this is one of the reasons I love what I do so much, because I get to work with really amazing people who have had experiences, and they've got knowledge and qualifications, and life has happened to them, and share that in such a beautiful and articulate way with me, and I just get to help them share that with the world. So thank you so much for being part of my world. Thank you,
And
Emma.
thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your world.
Oh, anytime, anytime. Take care, lovely.
Thank you.